A Ukrainian army sabotage group has infiltrated the territory of a military airfield in Russia's Tver region and planted an explosive device on a Mi-28 helicopter worth $18 million. Footage of the operation has been circulated on Telegram channels. Before the operation, Ukrainian fighters conducted reconnaissance in the area and successfully carried out the sabotage, disabling the helicopter. Although the Russian side has not released any official information about the incident, local media reported an explosion and smoke at the airfield.
Putin's army carried out a series of attacks in the Novokonstantinovka area. At the same time, the Ukrainian armed forces are carrying out counterattacks. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have voiced the situation in the Sumy region. It is noted that a reserve officer of the Ukrainian armed forces reported that the enemy army is facing unspecified serious difficulties in the Kondratovka area. At the same time, Z Publics confirm that most of the settlement is under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces. One of the Russian war correspondents associated with the northern group of Russian forces stated that Ukrainian forces have blocked all landlines of communication of the Russian armed forces in the direction of Yunakovka. He also claims that the units of the 51st Airborne Regiment failed to fulfill the Kremlin's task of occupying Sadki. Ultimately, the enemy switched from the offensive to the defensive and refused to carry out further orders from the Russian Defense Ministry. In addition, the war correspondent denied the information that the Akhmat units attacked and cleared the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Varachino area. On the contrary, the enemy planned to attack the Ukrainian armed forces, but retreated with losses. Last week, propagandists wrote that the Akhmat regiment had taken up positions in the Varachino area, but was refusing to move forward due to fear of Ukrainian armed forces drones. It is known that drone operators of the 155th Marine Brigade of the Russian armed forces are carrying out strikes against the Ukrainian armed forces in the Korchakovka area. Units of the 40th and 810th Marine Brigades, as well as the 9th Motorized Rifle Regiment, are operating in the Konstantinovka and Novo-Konstantinovka area. In the area of Andreevka and Alexeyevka, occupiers from the 177th Marine Regiment are involved. In the area of Novonikolaevka, units of the 22nd and 1443rd Motorized Rifle Regiments have been spotted. Let us recall that analysts from Deep State noted that enemy assaults to the point of exhaustion began to fade away. According to Deep State data, the pace of Russian assaults remains high, but the Russians can no longer sustain attritional attacks on the same scale. It will surprise no one, but Russians cannot constantly maintain a stable intensity of fighting. The project review says, if in the first 10 days of July, an average of 186 assaults per day were recorded, then in the second there were already 178, and the third ended with a figure of 171.5. As of the first 2 days of August, the average daily number of assaults is 155. In addition, the tactics of attacks themselves are changing. If earlier the enemy went into battle in groups of several dozen people, now small groups of 2 to 3 people are more often thrown into the attack. The so-called flag-striking tactics have not gone unnoticed either. demonstrative and risky operations whose purpose is not so much military as media. In such cases, Russian units try to plant a flag on a Ukrainian position for the sake of a photo and a report on propaganda channels, often at the cost of huge losses. Thus, the general activity of the enemy gradually weakens, and the methods used point to increasingly desperate and exhausting approaches. Russian invaders continue their summer offensive in eastern Ukraine, but given the significant losses in the enemy's ranks, it is impossible to talk about any Russian successes at the front, said Pavlo Narozny, a military expert of Ukraine and founder of the Reactive Mail charity organization. It looks like they didn't get the results they wanted. They hit their heads against the wall in the Pokrovsky region, Pavlo Narozny noted on air on Radio NV. The expert noted that the Ukrainian Defense Forces, and in particular the Marines, are holding the line. It is very difficult to say that we will be able to counter-attack now. I think these successes have tactical significance. The greatest danger that exists is to the east of Pokrovsk, where we can already talk about some kind of semi-encirclement. If there is an opportunity to counter-attack there and push back these troops, this will significantly secure this entire section of the front, Narozny added. He emphasizes that Pokrovsk is strategically very important for the Ukrainian Defense Forces because the loss of this city for Ukraine means a significant deterioration in logistics in Slavyansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration, and the situation there is quite difficult. There are battles going on in Chasiv Yar, and beyond Chasiv Yar, we have Konstantinovka. It is quite a large settlement, but in general, if we evaluate the situation in Donbass for 2 months and for the resources that the enemy has put there, and there is also talk about astronomical losses of the enemy, they have not achieved any significant successes, Narozny emphasized. Senior lieutenant of the Ukrainian Defense Forces with the call sign Alex, who is also the author of the Officer Telegram channel, said that Russian occupation forces are increasing their activity along the entire border of the Kharkiv region with the aggressor country. He noted that in the morning, units of the Ukrainian Defense Forces prevented the enemy from advancing from the state border in the area of Goptovka in the Kharkiv region. The enemy is increasing its activity along the entire border of the Kharkiv region with the aggressor country Russia, and it is not entirely clear whether they are probing the line of combat contact or trying to break through from different areas and then exploit their success everywhere, reaching the operational scale of combat operations in the direction, he explained. At the same time, Alex added that the occupiers have significantly increased their activity in the Kharkiv region, and these changes concern not only border areas. Such a situation is observed, including in the Kupiansk and Limansk directions, the military man added.